Dear sisters and brothers, today we are celebrating the 26th Sunday of the Ordinary Time. Today's parable seems simple, straightforward, and rather innocuous. It is far from this. Given the context in which it was spoken and the people at whom it was aimed, it is nothing short of explosive. Jesus had found far more openness to his message among sinners than among the religious leaders. While many of the former heeded his call to conversion and were making their way into the kingdom of God, the latter stubbornly refused to change their lives. One, of course, would have expected it to be the other way around. To get the full impact of Christ's parable, it may help to develop it a little. Once upon a time, there was an owner of a large vineyard who had two sons, Peter and Paul. Peter was the older and stood to inherit the vineyard. Being the firstborn, he was the apple of his father's eye and enjoyed a very special relationship with him. The father had great hopes and plans for him, placed great trust in him, and relied deeply on him. For his part, Peter seemed to be fitting in well with his father's plans. He went around telling everyone what a great man his father was, boasting about how much he loved him, and declaring that he would do anything to please him. However, he was quite a snob. He had no time for his younger brother and absolutely despised the servants. Paul was the second son. Though good-hearted, he was very jealous of his older brother. He felt left out of things and was deeply hurt at always having to take the second place. People tried to help him, but succeeded only in alienating him further from his father. He fell in with bad company and began to live a dissolute life. His conduct brought great sadness to his father, who nevertheless was patient with him, continued to love him, and refused to throw him out of the house as some were urging him to do. The harvest time came along and the grapes had to be picked. Every hand was needed. So the father went to his two sons and asked them to give a hand. Now, would you not expect that Peter would drop everything and go at once into the vineyard? And would you not expect Paul would start complaining and refuse to go? But this is not what happens. And this is why the story is so interesting. Of course, Peter said at once, "Sure, Dad, I will go right away." So far, so good. But in fact, he did not go. Why not? Because he did not love his father as much as he thought he did. In reality, he was selfish, proud, and very complacent. He was the firstborn, after all. He was the heir. Everything was guaranteed. So, why should he work? What were his master of a brother and the servants therefore? And naturally, as you would expect, Paul said, "Look, Dad, I'm not going. Ask someone else." So far, so bad. But he had second thoughts. And in the end, when? How come? Somehow he suddenly realized how good his father was and how selfish he himself was. He was too that his father, he saw his father far from writing him off as he deserved, still loved him. Now, here comes the crunch. Listen to Jesus' application. Remember, he was addressing the chief priests and elders of the people who despised tax collectors and sinners. He said, "You are like the older son, Peter. You say you are God's children, and you boast about your obedience to His commandments, but your love is illusion. You are not pleasing to Him, and the people you despise, tax collectors and sinners. They are like the younger son, Paul. They have repented of their careless ways and have begun to do the will of God." It was a scandalous and outrageous statement to make. They were the heirs. The others were the dogs. All their lives they had harbored that flattering and soothing conviction. They were furious because Jesus, in one fell swoop, had turned their world upside down. The meaning of the parable then was crystal clear. The Jewish people were the ones who said they would obey God, but didn't. The tax collectors and sinners were those who said they would not obey God, but then repented and did obey him. We are dealing then in the parable not with two individuals, but with two sets of people. Christ was not really praising either set. Both sets were imperfect, but he was saying that one of them was better than the other. Neither son in that story acted in a way that would bring total joy to his father. Both were unsatisfactory. But the one who finally obeyed his father was a lot better than the other. The ideal son, of course, would be the son who immediately carried out his father's orders. There are some people who will promise anything at the initial stage of the project, talking and planning stage. They are loud in their protestations of willingness and loyalty. But when it comes to the actual doing stage, they fade away. Then there are others who are initially reluctant to promise anything and from whom little can be expected. Yet often these are exactly the people who come up trumps, provided we know to appeal to them. The parable teaches us that promises can never take the place of performance, and fine words can never be a substitute for fine deeds. We shouldn't think that the parable was nothing to say to us. Part of us says yes to God with our words, and part of us says no to God with our deeds. We must therefore constantly examine ourselves. We must try to turn our promises into fulfillment and turn our words into deeds. We must see ourselves in need of continual conversion. Every day we can turn one of yesterday's no's not into one of today's yeses. Speak to people's hearts and they suddenly become virtuous. The only choice I have is between being a good painter and a bad one. Thank you.